Going on to the culture part of the podcast, you have Disney stock hitting a 9-year low, and more products are being cut. Now, it looks like specifically the most recent news is Disney Plus, their streaming platform. They're dropping 2 shows, and a lot of people are crying and complaining because they actually finished filming both of them, and it's because they want to save cash. Apparently, it's Spiderwick, which false advertising has nothing to do with Spider-Man or John Wick. I could only assume it would have been a cool concept to have John Wick, played by obviously Keanu Reeves, gets bitten by a spider, becomes a radioactive superhero, and becomes basically John Wick on steroids with extra superpowers. But no, we have to remember, Disney they only have a modicum of creativity left at the company. So it had nothing to do with John Wick or Spider-Man. Well, presumably some Spider-Man spinoff. So is Spiderwick, which again, disappointing, the Spiderwick Chronicles and Nautilus. And it looks like both of them were either remakes or expansions of previous old intellectual property. But they're saving a lot because, remember, the rule of thumb in terms of media production and Disney movies in particular, TV shows, is whatever you spend on the production of the show, it's usually twice that for marketing because you got to get the word out, which, I mean, just think about it growing up as a kid, makes sense of why you see so many commercials for a movie, and then you go see the movie. It's like the commercials are everywhere. It's partially because they have to get the word out, let people know, hey, we just made this thing, come pay to come see it. So it makes sense. Now it looks like I still can't believe Disney Plus is still failing. So last fiscal quarter, the Disney Plus streaming platform lost $512 million. Jeez Louise. $512 million. This is on top of them losing about $1.8 billion on movies for the past 10 or 15 movies. Again, it's hilarious. There's a writer strike and an actors and actress strike right now. They literally can't afford to pay them more, partially because these movies are all losing money, which I would blame on a myriad of factors, including writers for making basically junk for Disney in particular. But yeah, writers, inserting politics. There's many reasons why those movies are flopping, but they should be doing great. The concept of Disney Plus, they launched it at the most opportune time. They launched it when people were literally locked in their homes, forced to not go anywhere. And Netflix and the other competitors, they did great. But Disney, of course, they're not so good. And also, there's actually an article on Forbes talking about in 2022, so just a little while back ago, they posted their worst stock return in 48 years. It's astronomical. And they talk in this Forbes article, they also talk about how if you're going to invest money to the S&P 500, Disney is performing one of the worst. And it looks like just the bad news just keep going worse and worse. But I don't know, do you think Disney will turn this ship around? They're not getting the numbers that they want. They're not making a profit. And this, again, is some analysts on CNBC Squawk Box, which I was shocked had nothing to do with The View. I assumed it was a subsidiary, but apparently Squawk Box is one of their analytical shows where they talk about, business. And they're suggesting that they should actually sell off the parks from Disney, which the only logical way you could do that is if you had a perpetual license, like forever, where Disney either, because the characters are so tied in with the parks, you can't have one without the other. So conceivably, you could spin off, if you want to spin off the media part of Disney, you could sell that to Apple, who has enough cash to buy it. But you'd have to have some license agreement where you'd be able to use the characters in perpetuity and you would keep all the money. Because again, when it comes to the actual theme parks, not only are you paying thousands of dollars just to get in the door, but these idiots, fans are paying hundreds of dollars for stuffed animals of Mickey, which costs sense to make, but that's a big profit part as well. And if they have to all of a sudden split that revenue with someone else who technically owns the intellectual property, or they have to pay for a licensing deal with, I can't help but think the economics would not work. Because, like licensing, for example, usually you have to pay cash up front with a lot of those instances. And there's a lot of risk. You don't know how many you're going to sell. You may or may not recoup your efforts or your investment. So I don't think realistically they could divest that particular part of the business. They can certainly get rid of ABC. I don't know anyone who's watching a cable box these days. Look at me. Granted, I do have a TV was from 1983, which again shows how things used to be more reliable back in the day. For my dad's TV from college, his TV still works. But again, It's one of those things where Disney should just get rid of the cable. That's when I think about what Disney can do to get out of this spiral of death, physical as well as moral. But that seems to be the only thing they could easily spin off. You don't need the Disney Channel anymore. No one's really tuning into that, I wouldn't think. No one really needs FX. The only golden nugget of FX was they invested in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which turned out to be a huge hit show. But if you think about FX, yeah, they could definitely spin off ABC, FX. There's a lot of fat to trim. The only question is, what's Bob Iger going to do? As all these investors are starting to get worried and they can't help but notice you guys are bleeding money year over year. I mean, I know he has a goal to lay off 7,000 employees, and they're getting to that number, so that's going to help decrease their costs in terms of their capital that they're investing in people. But it's one of those things where gone are the days where they could spend $1 billion on a Marvel movie and make $1 billion plus. I think that's one of the big issues is they overinvest in all these movies. They put so much money into the movies, there's no conceivable way they can make a profit back. So I think they're going to have to definitely scale back. And Bob Iger has admitted they probably made too many Star Wars and Marvel films, which logistically in terms of like writing the movies is really easy. You just have to do Control V, or for those who aren't technologically inclined, copy paste, which for most Marvel movies and Star Wars movies is basically the same thing. You just have a copy of copy of copy of copy, which, yeah, interestingly enough, my favorite metaphor right now for Disney is a photocopy, where if you take that example, fun little home experiment, go use your home scanner, a scanner, a copier, a photocopier, make a copy of a copy, take that, make another copy, and copy it again. Every time you do that, the image will actually degrade, much like the intellectual property of Disney with their past films and TV shows. So it'll be interesting to see, can they pull out of this nosedive? Or what's a good Star Trek reference? Or out of this warp speed? Kidding, I know they own Star Wars, not Star Trek. But nevertheless, they're not doing good, and I don't see it turning around anytime soon. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to take the time to like, subscribe, and comment. Each one of those things greatly helps the channel grow and develop. We're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers by the end of this month, so I really think we can do it together. Also, the comments really help to build the channel, as the feedback is greatly appreciated. Try to make things show better and better. Also, and lastly, don't forget to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.